Hello, good morning everyone. I am Manor Kumar, Assistant Professor of English from Government College Devgat. As you know, last few days we have been studying the poem Elegy written in a country churchyard by Thomas Gray, and we have already discussed first to 20 first stanza of this poem, and today we are going to study the 22nd stanza of this poem. In the previous stanzas we studied that the names and ages of these dead men have been engraved on their tombstones by some illiterate writer who has misspelled many words. These engravings serve to commemorate the dead man and may be regarded as a substitute for poetic lamentation on their death. Many scriptural texts have also been engraved on the tombstones, which teach the vanity of human life. So, in the previous stanza, we discussed about the engraved tombs of liveried poor forefathers. And today we are going to study 22nd stanza of this poem. For who to dump forgetfulness a prey, this pleasing anxious being ever resigned, left the warm precincts of the cheerful day, nor cast one longing lingering look behind. So, as you know, this poem is a long poem and one of the greatest elegies of English literature. And Gray is a transitional poet whose poetry has the features of both romanticism and neoclassical. So, this poem has also the same features, and the poem is very difficult because Gray is also a obscure poet, an obscure poet, and his poetry is also obscure. So here we have to take serious this poem to understand the poem. For who to dump forgetfulness a prey, this pleasing anxious being ever retain. This means this life. Pleasing means pleasures, and anxious means pains. This life has its pleasures and its pains. Left the warm precincts means boundaries, premises of the cheerful day, nor cast one lingering look behind. So here the poet says that is there any human being who, while dying, does not have the desire to be remembered after death? So, the poet asks a question: is there any human being who, while dying, does not have the desire to be remembered after death? So, the poet wants to say that every man, every human being wants to be remembered after death. This life has its pleasures and its pains. Every life has its pleasures and its pain. So, was there ever a man who, while giving up this life, wished to be utterly ignored and forgotten? Was there ever a man who, while giving up this life, wished to be utterly ignored and forgotten? Nobody. While making his exit from this bright, sunlit world, when, while man giving up this life wished to be utterly ignored and forgotten, nobody, while making his exit from this bright, sun lit world, could ever reconcile himself to being completely forgotten. Every dying man casts a regretful look upon this world. Every dying man casts a regretful look upon this world and wishes to be remembered after his death in some form or the other. A dying man would no doubt become the victim of oblivion, but he wants that a memory of his should remain in the form of a memorial or an elegy or an engraving on his tombstone. So, every man wants that after his death he uh, he will be remembered by everyone. Every man has desires to be remembered after death, particularly his relatives, his kins, his friends. So, this is natural. So, here these liveried poor forefathers are very poor and victims of poverty, yet uh, they also wants they also want to be remembered after death. So in this stanza the poet describes the natural desires of human being. Now the next stanza of the poem: on some fond breast the parting soul relies. On some fond breast the parting soul relies. Some pious drops the closing eye requires. Pious drops means tears of sympathy. Even from the tomb the voice of nature cries. Even in our ashes, live their wanted fires. Wanted fire means usual emotions. Even in our ashes, live their usual emotions, wanted fires. Again, in this stanza, the poet describes the desires of human beings, the wishes of human being after death. On some fond breast, the parting soul means dying person. So, this stanza may be regarded as an answer to the question contained in the preceding stanza. In this stanza, the poet tries to give answer the preceding stanza. When dying, a man seeks comfort and consolation from some loving friends or relatives. While dying, while dying, a man demands, a man wishes, a man wants comfort and consolation from some loving friend or relative. This is natural. The dying man needs tears of affection and sympathy from his near and dear ones. The dying man needs tears of affection and sympathy from his near and dear ones. So, the dying man wants, the dying man wishes to the dying man wishes from his relatives, his friends, and other most loving persons that they they shed tears on death of uh, him, death of the loving person. So here the poet says the dying man needs tears of affection and sympathy from his near and dear ones. Even when one is dead and buried, the same natural desire for loving remembrance is felt by the departed soul. Even when one is dead and buried, the same natural desire for loving remembrance is felt by the departed soul. When all is dust and ashes, the keen desire for remembrance that lived in the body still lives on and finds expression in the inscriptions on the tombs. Thus, everyone longs for some kindly, loving remembrance, while a spark of life yet remains in him. So, nay, even after the spark of life has been extinguished, even when all is dust and ashes, that yearning must still be felt. In short, the desire for affection, sympathy, and remembrance can never die after death. So, every dying person, every dying person desires for affection, for sympathy, for remembrance from his relative, his friends, and other loving and close persons. So it is natural. So this was your stanza, and thank you for today.